thoughts on all this back and forth? You know, you're a prosecutor. Your thought, is there any there?
There's no there as far as the collusion conspiracy is concerned. But I think the thing that happened this weekend that's really important that people miss because they're so giddy about this story about Kushner is it blew up the collusion conspiracy. Because if there had actually been a collusion conspiracy, there would already be back channels to Russia. There'd be no reason for Kushner in December, weeks after the election, to need to set up a back channel to Russia had there been one during the campaign. So I know for the moment they're loving the story, but I think it's kind of exploded the story that they've been telling us for 6 months.
And now we talked about this yesterday. We were here live yesterday, and we talked a little bit about the fact that under President Obama, there were back channels that were set up with Russia. In fact, John Kerry, as Secretary of State, Obama's Secretary of State, developed those back channels. You can go back through every single president certainly in modern history, and there have been back channels, the Kennedys as well, right?
Well, that's right. And certainly the Obama administration went to extraordinary lengths, actually, to appease the Russian government under Vladimir Putin. And the same applied, of course, to the Iranian regime as well. Yet there wasn't the same kind of scrutiny of the Obama administration's actions, actually. And if you look at the Obama track record when it came to dealing with Russia and with Iran, it's really a track record of tremendous appeasement. The same also applied, of course, to Hillary Clinton as well when she was Secretary of State. Yet there wasn't this kind of tremendous scrutiny.
Why is that?
That's a very good question. I think there's a real double standard that's being applied. And actually, if you look at in fact, the policies of the Trump administration towards Russia, they're significantly tougher than the ones put in place by the Obama presidency, actually. And so the Russians aren't actually gaining anything at all, in fact, from this new Trump presidency being in place. And in fact, the Trump presidency has even talked about expanding sanctions against Moscow over Ukraine. And so this is different language than we saw coming from President Obama.
Frankly, though, I'm not impressed with tough language. That's just me. I'm impressed with tough action. And I said I thought the sanctions put forward by the administration of Barack Obama at the end were too little and too late. So I hope for America's sake that you're right, and we'll see that tough action follow the tough language.
He lifted sanctions. Before he left, Obama lifted sanctions.
Yeah, that was a problem. And they even placed them and they lifted them, and it was a mess either way, too little, too late. I want to speak to Michael Cohen and him not coming forward. I think as lawyers we know, I can't even believe that he was asked, quite frankly, only because I guess they had to, but it's privileged. I mean, certainly most of this information would be privileged, and no lawyer in his right mind ethically would avail and possibly breach that client confidentiality arrangement.
Well, this whole thing is kind of like that, right? If you watch the press briefing today, people are asking Sean Spicer questions that they full well know he can't answer. What do you think Donald Trump thinks about this? It's hypotheticals about hypotheticals, right? And it seems more like a kind of conversation you'd have over drinks, like gossiping and chit-chatting with your friends, than a kind of thing that would be televised and that he can really answer.
Right,
but it's all a charade, though. Yeah. It's the kind of thing that if you were in a courtroom with a judge, they wouldn't allow it to go on.
Exactly.
As you know. Right, because the judge would say, knock it off.
Yeah.
You know,
but also point out the fact that this has been going on for decades. Decades of back channeling. And again, let's point this out for 1,000th time. There's been zero evidence produced of any collusion between Trump's administration and the Russians, especially as far as influencing the election.
No, there's no there. There hasn't been from the beginning.
In the course of this investigation thus far.
As long as...
Ebony's been very consistent on this thus far, and you've been in favor
because the investigation hasn't concluded
but
yet,
how do you
right?
square this with the way our legal system works? You're innocent until proven guilty.
You absolutely are.
So at what point do you
I'm not someone that's in
the
favor of indicting President Trump at this point, Eric, and you know that. I haven't been unfair to the president at all. I also just want to be fair to the process, right, and let it play out and run its course.
Is it over-processed, though?
Is it over? Is it
too much process?
No, not at this point. Now, if we're 12 months from now and it's still going on, then I will give you that it's over-processed.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I absolutely don't. People still have these questions, and I think that, which Spicer did at certain points today, but not consistently, just say, hey, there's an investigation, Kushner's going to talk about it. Just say as little as possible, really.
Especially since we have new general counsel now. That has given everyone cover to just shut the hell up on TV.
Agreed.
But amid the media circus, John Sununu, the former governor of New Hampshire, went off on the mainstream media's coverage of the Russia probe. This was earlier today.
Look, you're asking hypotheticals on hypotheticals.
Well, I'm trying
There's
to actually
nothing,
take your temperature.
You
I'm
have
trying
nothing.
to gauge your comfort level with all of this.
My comfort level, the only discomfort I have is with folks in the media trying to create a venality without having the courage to specifically tell me what the venality that I should be concerned about is.
That's exactly what we were just pointing about the media asking the hypothetical of Sean Spicer.
If Kushner did this, how do you think Trump would feel about Kushner having done this thing that he maybe did or didn't do? What kind of use of anybody's time is that, really?
Well, we have two lawyers on set. Are you a lawyer as well?
I'm not a lawyer.
Just a PhD.
Just a Yale PhD.
So what's going on with the media? What's going on with the media and the press briefing?
But this, to Ebony's point, there is a proper investigation here, but it's a counterintelligence investigation involving Russia. And the only target or subject of a counterintelligence investigation is the foreign power that might have an impact on American interests. To the extent what they're doing here that's unfair is they're taking a situation where there is a proper investigation and they're conflating a criminal investigation with it, which there's no basis for.
Does the Michael Cohen being, I think he actually called himself now a, quote, target, whereas I think we had made that distinction before, where if you're just a person of interest, that's different from a target.
That's correct.
Not in a there is no target and no subject in a counterintelligence investigation. And this is what's so dishonest about what they're doing. Target and subjects are terms of art in a criminal investigation for who a grand jury will probably indict or might indict. It's got nothing to do with a counterintelligence investigation, which targets
seeking information.
Right. What is the foreign power doing that might compromise American interests?
Your thoughts now?
Yeah, I think, a key issue here, of course, is the ongoing leaks here, which are, I believe, extremely damaging to U.S. national interests. We saw that as well last week. Leaks with regard to the Manchester terror investigation, designed specifically, of course, to create a division between the United States and Great Britain. Fortunately, of course, no such division emerged, thanks to the strong leadership of Theresa May and also the fact that President Trump immediately reasserted the special relationship. But the reality is there are individuals who are leaking highly sensitive information for political reasons here.
Why do you think the media is not interested in the leaks, certainly not to the extent that they are interested in finding some sort of collusion between the Trump administration and the Russians?
Because they had an agenda ahead of time.
Yeah, and I think this is really it's a largely political story here. And, the reality is that U.S. policy towards Russia has not softened at all, actually, over the past few months. It is very important, though, I think, that the new Trump administration sends a very clear message to Moscow. They're not our friends, they're not our partners, they're not our allies. And I think that it's important for President Trump himself to send that message to Moscow.
To who? Who is it important to? I mean, so there's an appearance amongst the American people that we still have a, I don't know, call it or a fence or a distrust of Russia? I mean, what's the purpose of what you just outlined?
Well, I think, a clear statement from the President would blow out of the water this sort of suggestion that he's being soft on the Russians or weak on the Russians, or there's some sort of pro-Russian agenda. And clearly, if you look at
that bothers me a little bit.
He bombed a Syrian airbase where Russians were actually stationed at and working side by side with Syrians.
That's a very, very powerful statement to be making, and I think that we need to see more of those powerful statements. At the end of the day, the Russians are not our friends. They are a vicious adversary of the United States. And I think U.S. policy has to reflect that in every...
You don't want to have strategic confusion. I mean, you want the Russians to know that there are certain lines out there that if they cross them, we're not inviting them to cross them. It's going to be,
a hostile
consequence. I take certain issue with the idea that we need to sort of structure our foreign policy around what the media is going to say about it or what the media is going to do about it. I know that it's gotten so bad that there could be some truth to that, but I really resent that idea. I'm somebody who I agree with Ebony. I want to see the investigation go through. I have certain questions. But the way that people are reacting now, based on having no evidence other than suspicions and questions, I completely agree. But that just shows how it hurts the country as a whole, that Trump would even have to worry about something like that, rather than just saying, oh, what would be best for the country in this situation?
Well, final thought. Yeah, it's in the U.S. national interest to stand up to the Russians. They are the enemy of the free world. And so it's a fundamental...
Right, for that reason, of course.
A quick final thought. I don't like fishing expedition type things like this. To Kat's point, we cannot have a presumed ending before the investigation that will compromise any findings that we do get.